What really is the problem with constituency projects? President Muhammadu Buhari says there is little or nothing to show for the 1 trillion naira spent on constituency projects in the last 11 years. In spite of this, another 100 billion naira has been budgeted for lawmakers' intervention projects in the 2021 appropriation bill. We will speak with a senator of the Federal Republic to further understand the myth, fiction and reality surrounding constituency projects. I am Tijesu Adeyi. This is the Hallowed Chambers. The blame game continues between the executive and the legislature over the poor handling of constituency projects. A recent survey done by the National Institute of Legislative and Democratic Studies reveals that many Nigerians would prefer lawmakers directly take charge of the constituency projects. But in the past, some lawmakers have run into trouble with anti-graft agencies for diverting projects meant for their constituents. Now there is a Constituency Development Fund bill sponsored by Senator Ali Ndume that seeks to put the blame where it should be. This bill will also ensure that constituency projects are harmonized under one agency for easy monitoring, funding, and execution. During the week, I sat down with Senator Smart Adeyemi, representing Kogi West in the National Assembly. Like the rest of his colleagues, he is also pointing fingers at the executive for the poor handling and performance of constituency projects littered all over the country. So let's start with the controversy surrounding constituency projects. Of course, we know when this discussion is, comes to the table, the executive arm of government as well as the legislature have formed the habit of trading blames. President Muhammadu Buhari has come out to say the lawmakers should be blamed for the failure of the poor implementation of constituency projects. And the National Assembly has also countered this accusation by saying he should ask questions from the heads of the ministries, departments and agencies who are in charge of implementing and allocating funds for this project. Who should Nigerians believe?
Well, I think it depends on the perspective at which you look at the issues. In the first instance, legislatures are not with the power of the executive. In essence, we do not award contracts. Our functions and duties are defined in the Constitution. The executive are charged with the responsibility of ensuring completion and award of contracts. So to me, I think the contractors responsible for poor jobs or failure to carry out their obligations should be prosecuted. They are prosecuted if any legislator is involved. Then it should be exposed. I do not support these misconceptions, misrepresentation, and total blanket of condemnations of legislatures. If contracts are awarded and they ended up being a failed contract, the law is there for the contractors that are involved to be prosecuted. So, to me, to blame legislatures for poor performance of contractors, more so we're not involved in the award of the contract. If a legislature should take the risk of recommending a contractor to do a job.
But the argument that was put forward by the National Assembly is that these funds are not even released on time.
As I speak to you today, some of my constituency projects have not even been awarded by the MDAs. The ministry, department and agencies, as I speak to you, this month of November, they have not even awarded those projects. Some are just about to be awarded. So when do you expect them to complete those projects? And by the time you award contract by November, a project that should last for about a year for completion, by January, the funds are no longer released. So they become abandoned projects. So I think it is not really true. And I want to believe there have been a lot of mispresentations of facts to Mr. President. We are not in a position to award contracts. Contracts are not awarded as at the time they were supposed to have been done. Funds wouldn't be released until a month or two to the end of that fiscal year. So who do you blame for the failure of this contract? You can hardly even prosecute the contractors. Some of them had projects done with certificate raised above their their mobilization fee, and yet they were not funded again. So do you now blame the contractors who went beyond the limits of the fund made available for the commencement of those projects? I think that there's a need to take a look at these allegations again. You do not have to be a lawyer to know who is speaking the truth. There are processes. If those processes are not observed or they are not respected, who do you blame? You don't blame legislators. If projects are indicated for specific areas and those projects were not done, or the contracts were awarded very lately, it becomes a problem for completion. Eventually, such projects are abandoned. And if those projects fell within the constituency of a particular senator who probably was not re-elected, that is the end of that project.
So 100 billion naira is invested yearly into this project for even development of infrastructures in constituencies. And this is supposed to directly impact the life of the common man and people living in rural communities. But sadly, this is not the case. Should we attribute this to a failure of oversight, or performance of oversight by the legislatures?
You see, one thing is for the executive to announce figures for you. One thing is for the fund to be released. Not just being released, for this fund to be made available as at the time they were supposed to have been released. If you don't release fund for a construction of a project, as of January, the funds are not released after the budget has been passed in December, and you are releasing the fund around July when it's Nigeria nationwide is at the thick of heavy downpour. The contractors can no longer work because there's heavy downpour. So eventually such projects are abandoned. Okay? The problem is release of fund. Once project, the money bill is passed into law by December, January funds are not released. By February, March, they have not even gone for procurement. Some of the MDAs will be going for procurement by April. Now, by the time they are awarding the contract, it's already June. By the time the contractor is mobilizing to site, it's July. Now you're already in the period of heavy downpour in Nigeria. Now, do you not blame the legislature?
Even aside the delay in release of funds, the funds that are actually being released, there's the argument that these funds are being diverted to private pockets when they are being released. And there are some claims that lawmakers are even involved in diverting these funds. How true is
such
this?
Lawmakers should be exposed. They should be
Why are you
exposed.
saying this is true? Are you
prosecuted.
confirming this to be true?
I don't know. I wouldn't know whether it is true because I don't work in the FCC or the ICPC. You have the anti-graft agencies who should investigate this. If projects are abandoned, if they are not executed and money have been released, the next step is for them to prosecute. And in this country, I want to believe, and I still believe very sincerely, there's nobody that's above the law. So if legislatures are accused of conniving, the anti-graft agencies are there to do their job, to investigate, and such legislators should be exposed.
In the past 11 years,
Yes.
this project has engulfed over 1 trillion naira, over 1 trillion. And the impact of this huge spending is still yet to be felt by the common man. Do you think it's time to consider other, areas or other alternatives?
I want to disagree with you. Okay, you do not condemn a whole system or a whole program because there were failures in some few areas. There are areas where this constituency project, to a large extent, to a very large extent, had improved the well-being of the people. Make no mistake about it. The fact that we had problems in some few states in executing or some few constituencies doesn't translate to me that the constituency project is a total failure, a colossal failure. That's not true. There are communities today that to a very large extent, they appreciated the fact that they had projects in their domain. And without those projects...
But it seems like it's very few of them.
Depending on how far you have gone, Nigeria is such a huge country, okay? And the problem with this country is that we have many leaders who do not know the country. They speak from their local environment and use their local environment as a consideration of what they perceive must have happened in that part of the country. That can be true, and that is not right. The fact that you have failures in some few constituencies doesn't translate to me the constituency project as envisaged by the legislature to make life more meaningful for their constituents. It was a failure. Let me just tell you this. Many legislators get re-elected when their constituency projects are well executed. So you do not have to preach to the legislature or any member of the true chamber of the need to ensure the completion of its projects. When projects are completed, it becomes like you spending your money for the people. The people perceive it to be this is a major contribution for the man they have elected. So the man now goes back to tell the people, I've improved your work. So it pays us more than the executive for constituency project to be completed. It pays the legislature more.
The National Assembly, precisely the Nigerian Senate, introduced the bill titled the Constituency Development Fund, which literally strips the president and all these heads of MDAs the powers to allocate funds for constituency projects, as well as to determine how these projects are being implemented. To be precise, the bill proposes 2.5% of the country's annual budget to be set aside as a dedicated fund, and should also be managed by the Department of the Rural Development Department of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, and is to be implemented by the various constituencies through the Constituency Development Project Advisory Committee set up for each senatorial district and federal constituency. What level has this bill gotten to, and how is this going to ensure that the primary objective of setting up the constituency project program is going to be achieved?
I think the essence of the bill is to erase misinterpretation of constituency projects. In advanced democratic nations of the world, this is what is obtainable. That is, it is not new to developed nations. The bill emanated from investigation by legislators as to what is actually obtainable in other democratic world. And they discovered in the course of investigation that in most advanced nations, there are provisions for such projects. And these projects are projects that can best be appreciated by those who have been elected by the people. I once advocated, for instance, that we should democratize the process of budget in Nigeria. In essence, let every constituency, every central district, let every state come up with major projects of priority to the people. So that a minister won't just sit in Abuja and be budgeting for Kano or Lagos or Enugu or Calabar. Let us have a system where we are going to democratize that system, that process. In essence, that we need people, because we're not really running a federal system of government in Nigeria. We're running a unitary, that's a unitary or a mixture of both federation and unitary system. I think it's a unique system in Nigeria. You can't really define what kind of system of government we are running. Yes, we say like there's a federal federation, but in a federation, there's greater autonomy of resources by the state or by the various components, the political entity that constitute that federation. But in Nigeria, it's not so. We have a unitary system of finance in Nigeria, so to speak. And when you control the finance, you control the nation. Now, I think that the bill is seeking to ensure that no matter how small, every community, to a large extent, is opportune to have one or two projects emanating from the federal government to those areas, to those rural communities. And I think it's to be commended. It is what I think every Nigerian should support. Because when you have that bill in place, it then means both the senator, who represents the senatorial district, and the House of Reps, who represent the federal constituency, will be able to have one or two projects scattered within.
But don't you think this is actually going to be counterproductive, since this is still going to be managed by a department under the Federal Ministry of agriculture, which is still the executive. Don't you think we'll still experience these cases of delay?
The difference in it is that those who have been elected will monitor more than ever before, because they will actually indicate where those projects should be cited. And in doing that, they will equally monitor the release of funds. And I think more importantly is the fact that the fund is going to be within the priority projects to be executed. So to me, I think is the way to go in the system that we are running now.
And let's start a conversation around public expectations from the 9th National Assembly.
What you call the legislature represent the shade of all opinions, interest group in the country. And as such, democracy is not complete without the legislature. So whatever comes out of the legislature, the parliament, in terms of decisions, in terms of debate, in terms of resolution, in terms of lawmaking, is seen ideally as emanating from the people, from the environment.
President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, does not like the growing clamor for the scrapping of the Senate. He believes this could be a call for anarchy. Ahmed Lawan insists the Senate is more representative in nature when compared to the House of Representatives, where states with large populations produce the highest number of lawmakers.
Without this National Assembly or the legislature across the country, what we have is not democracy anymore. So the value of the National Assembly or the legislature to Nigerians is democracy. Because take out the legislature, you will have, it may not be dictatorship, but certainly not democracy. So when we always debate on jumbo pay, instead of what should be the functions and hold us responsible for what we are able to do and for what we are not able to do. Ask for what you think we should be doing, rather than saying, close the Senate or close the National Assembly. Do we understand the implications of this? You close the Senate, for example, not because I'm in the Senate, but Senate is a leveler.
Members of the Ebonyi State Caucus of the People's Democratic Party in the National Assembly have pledged their unwavering loyalty to the party. They say none of them would jump ship and move to the All Progressives Congress following the defection of the state governor, David Umahi. It seems they are not bothered by what seems to be the fanfare in the APC and the presidency over the new membership of Governor David Umahi.
3 senators and 5 House of Representatives members remain proud card-carrying members of the People's Democratic Party, PDP. While we support that it is the turn of the Southeast to fly the presidential flag of any of the major political parties come 2023, yet we consider it impolitic, indecent, and unwise to give ultimatums and conditionalities in a bid to secure zoning.
It was a closed-door meeting when the Department of State Service and the National Intelligence Agency appeared before the House Committee on the National Security to defend their spending plan for 2021. But just before they shut the media out of the budget defense session, the committee chairman promised greater support for the national security and intelligence gathering efforts.
The role of various security and enforcement agencies in supporting the federal government in achieving a sustainable national security reform cannot be overemphasized. In recognition of this reality, the committee assures you of its willingness to discharge its legislative duties of lawmaking, oversight, and representation with all sense of responsibility and patriotism to realize the much needed peace, order, and good governance of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as clearly established under Section 4 of the Constitution.
Still Still on our focus on constituency projects and the interest it is generating in the country, we asked how well do people at the grassroots benefit from this intervention designed to bridge the infrastructure deficit in various constituencies. Honorable Wale Raji, representing Ekpe Federal Constituency, attempts to provide some answers.
Constituency projects, as the name goes, are projects nominated by members of the National Assembly for execution in their various constituencies to fill the infrastructural gap, that have been identified. The history behind it is simply because that the lawmakers are the closest to the people, because during electionary campaign, the president, in most cases, will not go beyond the state capital during campaign. When the state governor is campaigning, in most cases, it doesn't go beyond the local government headquarters. It is the lawmakers that go into the nooks and crannies of their constituencies, and it's the telephone number of the lawmaker that the constituents, are likely to know, and it's the person that they call. And to them, they do not really know the separation of powers between the executive and the legislature. Anything that affects them, is the responsibility of the lawmaker. If they do not have teachers in the schools, they call on the lawmakers. If there are no classrooms, they call on the lawmakers. When the discos are not performing their functions, which is under the purview of the executive, it is the lawmakers that they call upon. Our responsibility in the whole process starts and ends with nominating the projects. The procurement process is carried out by the executive, so we do not have control over that. It is one thing to nominate projects, but the award of such contracts and execution of such contracts is dependent on the release of funds, because in line with the procurement law, you do not award contracts if there is no cash backup. So, and that is the responsibility of the executive. It is not everything. It is not every project you see in the budget that is executed at the end of the day. Unless you probably want to tell me that we achieve 100% budget execution, so which has never been the case. So rather than just generalizing that they do not execute, well, as far as I'm concerned, to the best of my knowledge, there is no contract, there is no project that we have nominated and contracts awarded that have not been executed in my constituency. Just last week, we have some schools in the current budget, that have just been awarded. I think about a total of about 5 blocks of classrooms, for instance. I think 3 of them by SDG. The contractors were taken to the site last week, and one is in Army Children High School in Ekpe. It's a block of 6 classrooms with VIP toilets and with furniture at the end of the day. One is at Odomola Grammar School, also in Ekpe, and the other one is in Agbowa Community High School. The contractors by the Special Grace School will move to site on Monday. There have been some other water projects that have been fully executed. They do not award except there is cash backup. So it was based on cash backup. My own responsibility is to ensure that this thing is in there and they are executed. There is also, I think, UBEC has also awarded the contract for one ICT center that's coming up at Ekpe Guys High School. We were there last week to identify the site along with the officials of the Ministry of Education, Lagos State. There's another block of classroom coming up at Oriba. We were there. Oriba is a riverine area in my constituency. And also, I think another one. Okay, those are the ones. I think 2 other ones are coming up, before the end of the month.
Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila says investigations have already begun into the circumstances surrounding the shooting of the newspaper vendor in Abuja. In a tweet he personally signed, the speaker queried the action of the security officer detailed to protect him and has also suspended him from the convoy pending the conclusion of the investigation. Speaker Gbajabiamila says he is personally distraught about this incident and his deepest sympathies go to the victim, his family, and Abuja vendors. That's our program for this week. Thank you for being a part of it. You can get more updates on the Hallowed Chambers on all our social media platforms. Also find me on Twitter. My handle is @TijesuAdeoye TVC. See you next time.